So I've been entertaining myself by scraping the sides down and kind of pushing it into the side but not stirring. But I think I'm at a point where I don't know if I can not stir or not stir anymore. Look at that. It looks like some kind of holiday. All right, we'll test the waters here. Ooh. I've never gotten this far before. Because I have to tell you, I've always stirred at the very beginning. And I thought maybe if I stirred slower, then the bubbles wouldn't come up. But when you add water with soap and then stir vigorously, that's what happens. It makes bubbles. And then those bubbles make air pockets in your soap that just make it mushy and not very good as soap. But this looks like it's ready to be stirred slowly. It's actually melted. All right, so here we go. Oh, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of mincemeat pie. 'Tis the season, right? Reminds me of mincemeat, and it reminds me of the hot process that we did last night. I am totally digging this double boiler method. Guys, if you haven't tried this, try this. Everything seems to come out way less dry than when I use the oven. Way less dry. Alright. I think I ought be careful here. There are some chunks and bits and pieces of different soaps that haven't quite made it yet. So, slowly trying to turn it over without adding any bubbles to it. And I'm going to put the lid back on. You see the skin that's forming because of the heat difference? The temperature difference. Alright. I'm going to leave this alone now. But I have to tell you guys, I am so happy. So freaking happy! Yay! I think that's as done as my French milling is going to get. I noticed that there's some bigger chunks in here. And I think that that's just because I used a larger, the larger side of the grater because I wanted to grate everything up really quickly. So if you guys want something smooth without the chunks and hunks in it, I would suggest probably using the finer grater side, and any chunks that you have left over, don't use those. Because you'll see them in the soap. But this is, I think, about as fine as I'm going to get to done. And it still looks like mincemeat pie. And this has turned out way better than any of my attempts to do this before. And I'm sure they're only going to get better from here on out. Like creamier, and then again, if I do the French mold soap again, I think I'm only going to use 1 or 2 types of soap instead of 7 or 8. Oh. So yes, fine grater. I did end up adding the whole of the 1/4 cup of water to it. And I think it would also expedite everything if you boiled your water before pouring it on there. It might help it. Preheating your double boiler, that'll help too. And right now I'm going to take this off of the heat. I'm going to put my thermometer in there and wait until it reaches a happy temperature that will accept my fragrance oil. Yay! And at this point you can add whatever you like. People add all sorts of things. They add like hibiscus or calendula or all kinds of fun stuff. Now is the time to add that sort of stuff. Or if you had a soap that didn't quite work before because it was too drying, Like say you made a coconut soap, like I did, that was mostly coconut oil, like mostly coconut oil. Um, and that can tend to be a little drying. Now would be the time to add your super fats and everything like that. It's all melted down and it'll be nice and accepting of some more. You can toy with the recipe a little bit. Everything that you wished you had done, you can do to it now. That is glorious to me. So I'm going to take this off of the heat and I'll turn you back on when I am ready to pour it into the mold, which is over there. Alright, I just measured my oil's temperatures and it's at 160, which is okay by my fragrance oil. Yay! And you don't need as much fragrance oil to do this as you would for a cold process soap because nothing is going to get eaten by the lye. But there's 2 pounds in there, so I'm adding the whole kit and caboodle. I'm wearing gloves because it's hot. Very, very, very hot. Well, I want to get all the fragrance oil in there, and I don't want it to cool down too much because then it won't stick to itself. Something strange that hot process does. And in this case, French milling, whenever it gets to this goopy phase, when it starts to create a skin, it won't stick to itself wherever it's created the skin. So when I pour it in, I still want it to be mildly pourable. Okay, one last look at it. Ooh. I still can't get over how much like mincemeat pie this looks. Mincemeat pie filling, rather. And that's because I added everything but the kitchen sink in here. All the different soaps that I've made over the past few months, the ends of it, everything. So there's everything from vanilla beans in here to lanolin and honey and oat milk and all kinds of stuff is now in this one soap. I'd be interested to see what the properties of it end up being. Alright. And it's starting to thicken up really quickly, so I'm going to pour it now. Pouring. Quick, before it forms skin. I can sit back up there and cool down. This is going to get pounded a wee bit. Just a wee bit.